All right. The House Economic Development and Small Business Committee will come to order. Would the clerk please read the letter from Speaker Tate?
Dear Mr. Clerk, I appoint the following members of the 102nd Legislature to the standing committees for the 2023-2024 legislative session. Economic Development and Small Business, Jason Hoskins, Chair; Christian Grant, Vice Chair; Tullio Liberati, Reggie Miller, Cynthia Neely, Karen Whitsitt, Betsy Coffia, Elvis Farhat, Mark Tisdale, Minority Vice Chair, John Roth, Greg Van Workum, David Martin, Alicia St. Germain.
All right. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Chairman Hoskins,
Here.
Rep. Grant,
Present.
Representative Whitsitt, Rep. Neely,
Here.
Rep. Liberati,
Here.
Rep. Coffia,
Here.
Rep. Farhat,
Here.
Rep. Miller,
Here.
Rep. Tisdale,
Here.
Rep. Van Workum,
Here.
Rep. Martin,
Here.
Rep. Roth,
Here.
Rep. St. Germain.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have a quorum.
All right. Let's take care of some housekeeping here. Rep. Grant moves to adopt Tuesday at 9 a.m. in room 326 of the House Office Building as the normal day, time, and location for meetings of the House Economic Development and Small Business Committee. Would the clerk please take the vote?
Chair Hoskins,
Yes.
Representatives Grant,
Yes.
Whitsitt, Neely,
Yes.
Liberati,
Yes.
Coffia,
Yes.
Farhat,
Yes.
Miller,
Yes.
Tisdale,
Here? Yes. Both?
Van Workum,
Yes.
Martin,
Yes.
Roth,
Yes.
St. Germain.
Yes.
Mr. Chair, you have 12 yeas, no nays, no pass. The time, day, and location is adopted.
All right, so far so good. All right, the House Economic Development and Small Business Committee will follow Chapter 4, stated in the House Standing Rules that were adopted on the House floor. All right, so welcome everybody. I am definitely looking forward to working with all of you on this committee. I served in a couple of capacities dealing with economic development. One, as a Southfield City Council person, in my city, we have over 60% of our tax base comes from businesses, big and small. We have over 100 Fortune 500 companies in our city. So economic development is something that's been very vital to certainly my community. I also served in the Senate before I was elected here, and I worked as a staffer for a senator who served on the Senate Economic and Small Business Development Committee. And there, the chair of that committee at the time, Senator Ken Horn, I really respected the way he ran his committee. He ran it in a very bipartisan way with the goal of really furthering the economic prosperity and viability of the state. And I am definitely going to run this committee that way as well. And I'm definitely looking forward to doing that and all of us having a part and be able to really further the state's economic prosperity. So we're going to be having a number of people come in, do presentations as we start to get also legislation coming through the committee. I will try to let you all know as early as possible if we're not going to have committee. Including next week, we will not have committee. So it's as early as I can get it for you. But with that being said, we will now have our presentation for this morning. It's going to be a presentation from the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. We will have Director Susan Corbin and Todd Cook, who is the Legislative Affairs Director for the department. So, if you would, please come forward.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate having the opportunity to meet with all of you today. I am Susan Corbin. I am Director of the Michigan Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. I have had my career in state government starting in the early 1980s as a student assistant in what was then the Department of Commerce. Since that time, I have had the opportunity to serve in many of our state departments and serve in the administrations of Governor Granholm and now Governor Whitmer. During that period, I also did probably the most difficult and rewarding job I've had, and that was the 12 years that I took off to raise my 2 sons. So I'm glad to have the opportunity today to tell you a little bit about the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. The department, LEO, as we refer to it, has been working hard to expand economic opportunities for all Michiganders. The bipartisan budget passed by Governor Whitmer and the legislature last year, coupled with the upcoming supplemental and other recommendations, make huge investments to support our efforts to close the skills gap, increase access to education, and make Michigan more competitive for economic growth. Here at LEO, we will continue to build innovative strategies that support employers and employees. LEO's mission is to expand economic opportunity and prosperity for all. Our vision is to make Michigan a place where all people, business, and communities have the educational and economic means to reach their full potential. Governor Whitmer created LEO by merging 20 agencies with common missions and goals into one, a cohesive department that needs to be focused on making Michigan a better place to live, work, play, and do business. In doing so, we have been committed to ensuring our efforts to promote economic opportunity and prosperity in Michigan are coordinated, evidence-based, equitable, and customer-focused. Our department works together to help close opportunity gaps with a holistic approach in areas of talent, economic development, housing, and everything in between through many agencies that you may already be familiar with, including the MEDC, MISHTA, the State Land Bank Authority, and UIA. Our Office of Employment and Training, under the leadership of Stephanie Beckhorn, houses bureaus designed to develop customized workforce solutions for businesses and individuals, including those with disabilities. Through its programs, services, and partners, our Employment and Training Division supports a constantly changing and dynamic workforce system in Michigan with a focus on worker training, supports for career-based education, job preparedness, and connecting people to employment services. Our labor division, under the leadership of Sean Egan, consists of agencies and commissions that are devoted to ensuring workplace safety and equitable labor relations for employees and employers by expanding outreach and education efforts, compliance and enforcement, as well as building stakeholder engagement opportunities and relationships. Our Prosperity Division, under the leadership of Kim Trent, works to create and execute strategies that build prosperity for Michiganders. From the Michigan Women's Commission to the Michigan Community Service Commission, Office of Global Michigan, MySTEM, the Poverty Task Force, the Office of 60 by 30, and the new MyHigh high-speed internet office, our prosperity team addresses the needs of Michiganders across the state through high-quality programming and policy initiatives that aim to empower them to reach their full potential. The combination of programs and divisions that make up LEO give us the best chance of building on our mission and creating a place where residents and communities can grow and thrive. To do so, we've created a strategic plan that aligns with the latest economic data and with the governor's vision for a stronger, more resilient, and a more equitable state of Michigan. This plan will result in better jobs, better skills, more people re-entering the labor force, and more people staying in Michigan and moving to Michigan. It will result in a better economy, one that expands economic opportunity and prosperity for all by driving educational attainment, and increasing workforce participation. To get us there, we are focusing our efforts on the work that will best serve those who need it most. This includes coordinating efforts to educate Michiganders and grow the middle class, removing barriers to employment, creating better jobs and supporting small businesses, closing equity gaps, protecting and enhancing the health, safety, and economic security of workers, and building strong communities. And our strategic plan plays a pivotal role in accomplishing these strong yet attainable goals. First and foremost, we're focused on efforts that create pathways to higher education for more Michiganders. And there's good data to back up why this is so important. Jobless rates tend to be much higher for individuals without a high school diploma or those without additional education beyond a GED. Labor force participation rates are also lower for these groups. Median annual wages increase with higher educational attainment. Outcomes for recent graduates show significant increases in wages with post-secondary education. And the one that I like to point to is the difference after working 5 years, someone who just has a high school diploma, and then after working 5 years, someone with an associate's degree, and the income is almost double. Post-secondary education is correlated with lower poverty rates in Michigan. Completing high school or an equivalent had a poverty rate nearly 13 percentage points less than not completing. With these numbers in mind, I'd like to share with you some of our work and the key programs that are already having an impact on Michigan's people and economy. With the focus on these 4 key areas, we're working hard to prepare Michiganders for success through programs that remove barriers and equip them with the skills needed to pursue the careers of the future while supporting businesses with the talent needed to fill in-demand jobs. Through our Office of 60 by 30, we are working to grow the number of working age adults with a skills certificate or college degree from 49% today to 60% by 2030. These efforts will help us build a better Michigan by closing the skills gap to ensure the success of our businesses and our state's prosperity. Through more accessible education and skills training, we are preparing Michiganders with the skills needed for the jobs of today as well as the jobs of the future. Increasing opportunity and Michiganders' greater access to the education and skills that create opportunities for better jobs and bigger paychecks, and making Michigan more competitive for inclusive economic growth. By increasing opportunity and providing Michiganders greater access and a tuition-free pathway to the education and skills, we are putting them on track to bigger paychecks and a successful future and making Michigan more competitive for inclusive economic growth. Following the success of the Futures for Frontliners program, we joined the governor to launch the Michigan Reconnect program, expanding tuition-free access to adults 25 and older. To date, over 114,000 Michiganders have been accepted. Over 24,000 of those have already enrolled with their local community college, and over 2,000 have already earned a credential. This is great news. If we continue this trajectory, we will be on track to achieve our 60 by 30 goal. These efforts are critical in preparing Michiganders with the skills needed to pursue the jobs that are critical to our workforce and economic success. During the governor's State of the State address, she mentioned lowering the eligibility age for Michigan Reconnect from 25 to 21. This opens the tuition-free doors to roughly 400,000 more Michiganders. We're thrilled at the prospect of empowering even more people on a path to a good-paying, high-skilled job. We're also making significant investments that help employers with training and investing in current and newly hired employees. The Going Pro Talent Fund has supported 170,000 workers at more than 6,000 small businesses, helping to ensure that employers have the talent they need to compete and grow, while also ensuring individuals have the skills they need for in-demand jobs. It also expands and improves employees' skills and develops their opportunities for growth or promotion within the company and for economic advancement. The program addresses skills shortages by reskilling and upskilling Michigan workers based on employer needs and supports an increase in credentials, certificates, and degrees through employer-responsive training that enhances talent attraction, productivity, and retention. Due to the program's popularity, Governor Whitmer and the legislature have appropriated $55 million for Going Pro. The first round of applications for fiscal year 23 closed in late 2022. Recipients will be announced this week. The second round of funding will open up for applications later this spring. We're continuing our work in developing Michigan's future workforce through the expansion of registered apprenticeships. More than $35.8 million in state apprenticeship expansion grants since 2019. Leo has awarded approximately $6.2 million in state apprenticeship expansion grants, creating more than 18,700 opportunities across the state. With support from federal grants and $10 million in the fiscal year 23 budget, we expect to create more than 6,000 new apprentices over the next few years. Our fiscal 23 budget includes $10 million for barrier removal and employment supports to remove barriers to employment for low-income, poor, and working residents, including those who earn above the poverty level, but not enough to adequately sustain a household. We've also asked for $15 million ongoing, courtesy of the supplemental budget. These supportive services will address a wide range of barriers, such as transportation, legal services, childcare, clothing needs, tools for work, and other barriers that prevent this population from working. Statewide support for barrier removal and other critical supports are handled through the Michigan Works agencies. The Michigan Electric Vehicle Jobs Academy, or EV Jobs Academy, has consisted of an initial $5 million investment into developing and expanding a high-qualified and skilled workforce in the automotive, mobility, and electrification industry. Leo's Office of Employment and Training leads this effort along with their partner, the Workforce Intelligence Network. EV Jobs Academy takes a collaborative approach by engaging more than 100 partners, including employers, industry stakeholders, and education institutions to develop education and training solutions to meet the industry's talent needs. Another exciting and new initiative we've launched to help eliminate childcare barriers is the My TriShare childcare program. This program splits the cost of childcare between the employer, employee, and the state, and makes childcare more affordable for working families. It also increases talent retention potential for employers. The Michigan TriShare Child Care Program is active in 13 regions across Michigan. These facilitator hubs work with participating employers and local networks to make this program possible. We're especially grateful for the W.K. Kellogg Foundation and the Ballmer Group for funding 4 of these facilitator hubs. We're taking a creative approach to provide long-term support through TriShare with $1 million investment and $2.5 million in our 2023 budget. Roughly 150 employers, 213 families, and nearly 300 children currently are benefiting from this program. Of course, our work doesn't stop here. Our 2023 budget also includes over $200 million in enhancement grants for over 100 different community organizations, local governments, and cultural institutions in amounts ranging from $250,000 to $11 million. There are also special grants to the University of Michigan and Wayne State University to create world-class research centers. And with at least $700 million in ARP funding still left to be expended, we will continue to work with the legislature and advocate for investments, including a Michigan Main Street initiative to provide aid to place-based businesses and create small business smart zones and accelerators, and a 60 by 30 fund to further expand education opportunities, college to industry pipelines, and wraparound assistance for students. With help from Governor Whitmer and our bipartisan legislature, We'll continue to make progress on these issues so that we may fulfill our mission of expanding economic opportunity and prosperity for all Michiganders. Thank you.
All right. I don't know if any members have any questions, but I'm gonna start just by, because you mentioned, of course, MISTA is in the department, and as you know, we have a subcommittee dedicated solely to housing because of how important it is to our economic health here in Michigan. So could you kind of go into, if you can, what the department is doing in regards to housing?
Yeah. We have a new executive director at MISTA. Amy Hovey has stepped into that position. I think her start date was just in the last couple of weeks. Gary Heidel, who is the acting executive director, remains at MISTA. He's going to serve as Amy Hovey's chief of staff. I know many of you are familiar and have probably worked with Gary in the past. Amy has a wealth of experience in banking, experience in federal government, experience in with working with members of Congress. She also has experience working in the development world and the nonprofit world. So we're excited to have Ms. Hovey take the helm. MISTA, as you can imagine, during the pandemic, with the federal support for mortgage and rent relief, was very, very busy, assisting tens of thousands of households to prevent eviction and to provide mortgage support. The legislature now, in our last budget, has really focused on the issues that we know in Michigan we are facing in terms of housing. In traveling the state, it's very clear that housing has become one of our top economic development issues. You know, we're hearing from employers across the state that they may hire somebody in their local community, but the person that they've hired can't find a place to live in their community. So the governor has challenged us in the next 5 years to build or rehab 75,000 housing units. Well, it's now 4 years. We're on track to meet that goal. I think that we estimate that we hit that with 16,000 units in this past year. MISTA has some much more flexible tools now. We have an investment in a new missing middle program, which is designed to assist local communities and developers with that missing middle, the workforce housing that we know is necessary in communities. MISTA also has an investment in the Community and Economic Development Fund, and this is what we believe is going to be the most creative tool, in addition, to the federal tools, the tax credit tools that we have. But we think this is going to bring a lot of creativity and flexibility to housing in Michigan. That fund was in existence in the past. I think however, it has not been funded in our recent memory. I think the last time that it was funded was in 2014. So, we're really excited that this fund, it has dollars again, and that we're hoping that it's something that is continued to be funded so that MISTA has that flexible tool. But prior to stepping into using these new dollars and these two new tools, MISTA in the last couple of years has worked on a statewide housing plan. I think it's the most robust study that MISTA has ever done. They surveyed thousands of people across the state, and they pulled together a statewide housing plan, which was released a few months ago. And in that plan, they talk about, solutions that we should be looking at, policy solutions that we should be looking at in the state of Michigan.
All right, thank you. Representative Tisdale.
Thank you, Chair Hoskins, and Director Corbin, thank you for coming to visit with us this morning. One request and then one question. Relative to the median annual wages by educational attainment, and I think you made an excellent point of pointing out or describing the difference between high school diploma and you look at certificate and associate's degree. The numbers I would like to see, particularly in line with the Michigan Reconnect and enhancing the value of that program, we've heard an awful lot about student debt, and it's at record levels. I'd like to see the bachelor degree attainment wages and the master's or higher degree attained wages. I'd like to see a net number on that because I'm assuming these are gross median wages. And I think if you see a net number on that, it focuses more attention on the value of that certificate and the associate's degree because those debts, those record debts have to be serviced all the way along. So if you could get back to us with those numbers, that would be great.
Yeah, I will go back to our labor market information group. They are housed within the Department of Technology Management and Budget, but we work very, very closely with them, and I'll see that if that's, information that they have and can pull together.
If that
for us.
shrinks that number considerably, again, it just highlights the Michigan Reconnect, which I think is a great value and could justify moving that number lower. Relative to MISHDA and housing, the National Association of Home Builders says that with code requirements, permits, environmental impact studies, you name it, they face a $94,000 expense before the first shovel has been put into the ground. I don't know if MISHDA will, if their building and rehab will face those same requirements. What are you looking at to reduce that $94,000 burden before we even start building?
Yeah. Well, many of the things that you talk about are, not under the purview of the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity. But I know that MISHDA looks, at all of the factors in terms of the cost of housing and programs that we need to be talking about to help offset those costs for, people with low and medium incomes.
Or with eight years local government background, I'd be more than happy to work with you and enthusiastically work with you on maybe having some carve-outs locally or some kind of incentives for local governments to maybe ease their obstacles. And throughout the presentation, you use the words barrier, which implies insurmountable without state help. I think these are obstacles and recognizes that people have agency themselves. So thank you very much for coming this morning.
Thank you.
And when can I expect to see the net numbers?
Let me go back and see if it is something that LMI indeed has at their fingertips, and we can get back to the committee and let you know how long it'll take to pull that information together.
Right.
I hate to speak for them.
Well, go ahead and do it. No, thank you very much.
Representative Roth.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Appreciate the presentation. One of the questions I had, and you can do this generically, you don't have to get in major depth. How do you work with employers, colleges, skilled labor facilities? How do you do that to get the right jobs that we're looking for in the future?
Well, in Michigan, we have a somewhat decentralized system, but in all of our communities, we have our local Michigan Works agencies. So all of our federal workforce training dollars, come through the department, through grants. The dollars go out to our local MWAs. We strive to have a close working relationship with our local MWAs. We know that there are a lot of really creative things that are happening at the local level with our partners. The same with community colleges. I have, in the past several months, I have been doing a tour, meeting with our community college presidents and MWA directors. we have staff who are, you know, very tightly connected at different levels with those organizations. But I've really enjoyed the opportunity to visit the directors and the presidents, you know, in their locations and get to hear directly from them about, you know, some of their successes, what they're most proud of, and then also what some of their greatest challenges are.
I appreciate that part, but I'd like to see maybe we engage our industry leaders in some
yeah.
kind of round
Yeah.
table of some
You know,
sort.
we do a weekly call with, we started this during the pandemic. We started weekly calls with the heads of all of, you know, the major business associations in Michigan. And that's something that we have kept up. You know, we don't make decisions without engaging with those kinds of stakeholders. We recently underwent a revamp of the Going Pro program. The program was only a few years old, but we were hearing from our local MWAs, from local employers, from our statewide associations, from our partners at the MEDC, that we could make some improvements with that program. So we pulled together a work group, and there were, you know, the Michigan manufacturers, the Small Business Association, along with other stakeholders, you know, participated in that process.
Yeah, thank you.
Representative Van Workum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Director Corbin and Mr. Todd Cook for being here today.
Yeah, I should have introduced Todd. I'm sorry about that. Todd Cook is our legislative director. Thanks for pointing that out, Representative.
I apologize if I still have some of my appropriations hat on. As it relates to the Michigan High-Speed Internet Office, this is something that was created very recently.
Yes.
Part of the directive was to draw in other departments so that this wasn't just managing bureaucracy, but actually an entity with the ability to make decision-making power. Can you speak on the progress of that? How many others from different departments have consolidated into there? And how much of those dollars have actually been distributed? For a committee that is focused on economic development and small business, we believe high-speed internet is critical to our potential as a state with small businesses. It's my recollection that we spent about $250 million into that program last time. How much of that has actually been put into the field?
Well, the office has become fully staffed. Eric Frederick is the director of the Office of High-Speed Internet. He is considered our state's chief connectivity officer. Eric probably has the longest history of working on issues around high-speed internet than anybody in Michigan. He came to us from Connect Michigan. Right now, the office is focusing on, most recently, the FCC issued their maps of what they thought were our locations for internet across the state of Michigan. We had a period of a few weeks in which we could challenge those maps, and it was really critical that we did that, because ultimately those maps will determine how much federal money Michigan will be getting in terms of building out our broadband infrastructure. Michigan was, we were very fortunate because the Strategic Fund had funded a study across the state of Michigan looking at where we had high-speed internet and where we did not. They looked at it, I'm not going to use terms because I'm probably not going to get the correct technical terms, but they looked at 3 different speeds of internet and where we had it in Michigan and where we didn't. I think in this study they drove 65,000 miles across the state of Michigan. We were able to take all of that information and overlay it with the information that the FCC had provided in terms of their mapping, and including also individual challenges that homeowners made in reviewing that map. We were able to challenge over 100,000 places across the state of Michigan where the FCC said there was service and we believed there was not high quality service, or there was no service. Early estimates of how many dollars we will get to help support that, final build-out of infrastructure across the state initially were about $1.4 billion. But what we've been able to do in challenging all of that, and challenging that FCC mapping, Eric is now estimating that we may get closer to $1.8 billion. So, those are dollars that will be coming to Michigan over the next few years as this process plays out. The office has also started a listening tour across the state of Michigan. That tour was kicked off in the city of Detroit last month. They're slowly working their way across the state. In fact, they will be in Marquette later in February. But we know that it's not just building out the infrastructure, but it's also looking at equity and accessibility issues for Michigan. We don't have the answers to that. And so that's why the office has kicked off this statewide tour. The office has also just opened up the first round of Robin funding. I think that's $250 million that will go out to internet service providers to help build out underserved areas. Did I miss any?
No,
Did you have additional thoughts on
I
that?
think what Representative Van Workman was referring to was that first pot of money, which is the Robin program, that those applications are currently open, and that'll be open until mid-March. There were some requirements from our federal partners to go through some things to have that program opened up in terms of information on hand and things like that. But again, we appreciate the support that the office has received in the past. I think the reality that we all have come to know during the pandemic is high-speed internet access is no longer a luxury. Whether it's education or healthcare or public safety, having every person in Michigan have access to this is something that's going to be important as people make decisions. It's important from an economic development perspective in terms of some of our more rural areas are able to better compete with urban areas like Chicago and Boston because those workforces can have work from home or flexible schedules based on internet access. We also know with our aging population that healthcare and having quality access to healthcare at home at times is important. And that's something that is no longer going to be a luxury. But again, the office, as Director Corbin has said, through the listening tour, which is a requirement of some of these federal dollars, we'll be having dozens of meetings across the state with the community partners to hear about their concerns, make sure that we're doing this in a way that is efficient, because as great as these dollars are, we still have to make sure that we're doing so in a way that makes sense and working with our partners in the private sector who will be leaning on tremendously to make this happen. So we're excited about this. I'd also just like to put a plug in for those of you who are new members. Our office every week puts out a newsletter. It goes to your main inbox. It gives a highlight of week's activities of what's going on. Also has a lot of good information in terms of any constituent requests and things like that you may have. And so for those of you who were here last session, you're probably used to it. For those of you who are new, you may not have seen it before, but I encourage you to do that. It's got lots of good information, including those dates of all those hearings coming up in terms of the Michigan Office of High-Speed Internet.
All right. So I have a few questions, unless Representative Kofia.
Good morning, thank you for being here. So, two things, and I'll start with the Michigan Reconnect. Is that limited to certain fields, or can students pursue any degree available at their local community college, such as my community college, Western Michigan College? Rep. Roth and I have shared that, but I'm just curious if you could speak a little bit more to the types of degrees that they pursue.
Yes, people can pursue, 2-year community college degrees. They can also pursue a skills certificate for an in-demand career, and by that, it's skill certificates that are Pell eligible. So if they're pursuing a skill certificate that is eligible for Pell funding, they can, pursue those kinds of certificates. And someone asked me for the list of Pell eligible, and I've not gone back to look at that list to refresh my memory of all the types of certificates that people can pursue that are Pell eligible. But, you know, obviously, we want students to pursue careers that are in demand because we want them to walk out, you know, and be able to get a job in their community. So I always encourage people who have enrolled in Reconnect to meet with the counselors at their local community colleges. Also, stop by their Michigan Works offices, because the Michigan Works offices, better than anybody, know what kinds of skills local employers are looking for. So that's the kind of guidance that I give when I have a chance to meet someone who's thinking about enrolling in Reconnect.
Thank you. And one additional question, this is something to TriShare. Can you go into more detail about the TriShare childcare, specifically where are the 13 regions where it's currently available, and the percentage split? The presentation talks about a three-way split, but can you just dig down into how that actually breaks down?
Yeah.
Where and how much?
The 13 hubs are in what, 56 counties now?
They're in
across the state?
Yeah, they represent, I think, 59 counties.
59, okay.
Throughout the state. You know, the program, and I should point out and thank Representative Van Workum, who showed some leadership in getting that program started, you know, and really being a leader in that. We appreciate his support on that. But the program is as simple as it says. A third of the cost of the health care or the child care is paid by the employer, a third by the employee, and a third by the state of Michigan. You know, the program has, I think, now that we've gone beyond the pilot program, the feedback we've gotten from some employers are concerns about participating in this and having something maybe go away. But we've really seen kind of an enthusiasm start to build and move forward on this. We think, you know, in addition to the housing issue, childcare is another issue that we hear, and it impacts our workforce participation rate. About 140,000 women with children of school age who were working prior to the pandemic still have not fully come back into the workforce. And while it can't all be attributed to childcare, certainly a big part of that is. We also know that this is an issue that we'll have to work through several different tools to make improvements. TriShare is one of them. It won't be the only thing that will help this. Well, we're appreciative of the governor's efforts to help fund child care reimbursements and expansion and things like that. But I think it's an important thing. But we're looking forward to continuing growing the participation in the TriShare program, and we can certainly get you more information to all the committee in terms of local hubs in their area. That's one of the biggest challenges we have, is just continuing to make sure that folks in their community and their employers know that this is something that they can take advantage of. You know, anecdotally, I can tell you that those companies who are involved use it as a way to attract talent and use it as really as a marketing tool and as a benefit. So we look forward to that, and then we can certainly get the committee information in terms of the specific locations, but it does represent 59 counties throughout the state.
All right. Representative Farhat, and please make sure your mics are on too.
Thank you, Chair Hoskins. You know, from my time working at, prior to being my term in the legislature, I worked at Wayne County where we did some economic development projects, and, you know, we're fully cognizant of how competitive of a economy we're in, right, for jobs, but also for employers. And so I have two questions. One of the largest issues we had in attracting employers at times was the issue of reliable transit and the reliability of workers actually being able to show up on time as a result of there not being infrastructure to support transit of some kind. I know you touched a little bit on removing barriers. I'd love to hear a little bit about how you folks have taken on mobility as a barrier for employment so far.
Yeah, transportation, childcare, housing, you know, the three top barriers that we see, that we hear from employers and employees. As I mentioned, I talked about the dollars that we have for barrier removal. So a local Michigan Works agency can use those barrier dollars, you know, if it's providing bus passes, you know, some other kind of assistance in terms of transportation for someone who's seeking a job. We're also in our department is the Office of Future Mobility and Electrification and the Council for Future Mobility and Electrification. The council, recognizes that when we look at making this transition from ICE to EV, there is an equity component, and that we need to be talking about solving some of our transit and mobility issues for, low and middle income people as part of that transition. The Office of Future Mobility and Electrification is piloting a program now. I'm not gonna be able to think of the name, the cards that we're doing in OFME, that provide people with, one transit card that can be used across all, public transportation systems. So, it's a big issue, and I know that, it's something that takes work beyond just what we're doing in the department in terms of solving transit issues for, employees.
And I 100% agree. I think it's a more systemic issue. But in the short term, what things that we're doing. So those are some great interventions. Thank you for sharing that. And then you touched base a little bit on the Michigan Main Street Initiative, which is kind of looking forward. Can you touch a little bit more on, or go in a little bit more depth on what that initiative entails, what the Michigan Main Street Initiative looks like, or would look like when implemented?
Yeah, I don't know if Quentin Messer has been scheduled yet to appear before the committee.
He's been scheduled, yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's probably a question that if you asked Quentin that question, he could give you a more robust response in terms of programs that are happening in MEDC. But, I can say that we know, in Michigan, everybody deserves to live in a thriving community. And in order to do that, we need to be making investments in our local communities and supporting, small businesses and supporting local communities in supporting projects they know will be transformational for their communities.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair Hoskins.
Representative Van Workum.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is more of a general question, and I heard that Quentin will be coming in at a later date, but as the director of the department, I'm curious, the SOAR fund is relatively new, kind of in its infancy, but curious on your perspective of what you believe the legislature's role should be in the SOAR process.
Well, the SOAR program was a tool that was created, by the legislature. There have been some, I know robust discussions between MEDC and the legislature in terms of support of previous SOAR projects. And, I anticipate that those kinds of conversations will continue. The governor in her State of the State talked about identifying a permanent funding source for SOAR. And so, I look forward to following those discussions in this session.
So you believe that the legislature and the MEDC should still have those robust conversations about projects?
I think that we need to, continue having robust conversations around that, as well as, what could be a permanent funding source for the program.
But having those robust conversations is helpful to that process. Thank you.
All right. I don't see any other questions. So, see, Representative Grant moves to excuse absent members. There's no objection, so the motion prevails. And with that, and thank you so much for coming in. We really appreciate all that you share with us. And if you could get back with some of the members who did have questions, I would also very much appreciate that. And with that, there being no further business before the committee, this committee stands adjourned.